everybody knows this wonderful book they produced. It was my honor to be invited to do an introduction to the book. So I'm going to try to create a little perspective for what we're going to talk about for the whole day. But my perspective goes a little bit back in time. So let me start by saying here are the 4 themes that I want to talk about today. So the 4 themes are, first of all, I want to say something about evolution. I've been very interested in this topic for many years now. I've been writing on it. And the question is, what kind of animal is a human being? Because if we're going to talk about human capital, we need to understand what is the raw material that we are dealing with. Thirdly, when we put ourselves in a modern context, what happens to this animal? In an organizational context, what good happens and what bad happens? And finally, can we find some solutions on the basis of this understanding? So if we look at the history, you can see that the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago, and the first humans appeared on a 24-hour clock 1 minute and 27 seconds ago. It's quite soon. Here we are. The extinction of the dinosaurs was quite late also. That's only 21 minutes ago. Now, let's go back to this time also. And you can see the first human-like creatures only appeared 2 hours ago since the extinction of the dinosaurs, and the first human culture was 40,000 years ago. So you can see we have a long history of evolution. So we started out like this, you know. It started with global cooling, creating a space. In this space, it meant that this new creature could emerge. This creature that could walk on 2 legs. Okay? Now, what does 2 legs mean? It means your hands are free. These are fingers, very useful for berries, but also very useful for computers. Then we started to make tools. You have the hands free, this makes the brain grow when you start making tools. We have a hands free, is very important. We can start to make these tools and even later some art. The invention of fire means you don't have to spend so much time hunting and gathering. You have a nice small stomach, you can absorb protein very efficiently. You have more time to be doing other things, building things. Of course, the problem is the brain is very big. If you walk on 2 legs, your pelvis is rotated. The big brain means the baby has to be born early, too early. So the baby is very vulnerable, unlike any other species, which means we have to have a society to raise a child. So you can see how this evolution of walking on 2 legs, big brain from Toulouse, and also then it means you need a whole community that is going to support. So we are very, very social animals. Just look at us now. Not many chimpanzees will be doing this. So here we are. We come to modern humans. Here we are. Not quite like this, I have to say. It's more like this. On this clock, you can see how, again, if we go back to the 40,000 years of human culture, when art first started appearing on cave walls, you can see agriculture was still only at 16 hours. All this other time, we were hunter-gatherers, and this has been our main source of evolution, is to be hunter-gatherers. We have an arm, you know, we can rotate, it means you can throw something, you can kill something at a distance. We have these fingers, we have the hands free and so on. So the University of Bologna is quite recent, 3,900 years ago. Okay, and the Ford Model T is only 3 minutes ago. So what we're talking about in the problems we're facing now are very, very recent. These are hunter-gatherers. These are people who we were like for so many thousands of years. You go to one of these people and you say, "Take me to your leader," and they say, "Who shall we send?" They have a different model. Their model of how to live, how to work together is completely different to the models that we have got used to. I spent some time with the Maasai, who are of course are later. These are pastoralists, these people, but they also have a quite different model of leadership and of social organisation than we are used to. And this, you could say, is much more normal or more recent than where we are. I wrote a book about this many years ago called Managing the Human Animal. And the book says, you know, we build this glittering city, this wonderful city here, and you could call the city, if you like, a metropolis, or you could call it markets, or the internet. Whatever it is, it's very complex, it's very demanding, but the people running it, you and me, are still very primitive. We still have the brains of hunter-gatherers. Here they are. You can look at here's some of the things that humans can do. This is now starts to get very interesting when we can large numbers of people who are not related can be together. That's again a characteristic of human sociality. Even larger numbers, and then we can do some very strange things indeed. Now, let me just. This is a complicated slide. So I'm just going to talk to a few points on this slide, because this is really how evolution works, and it's very important that we understand this. The principles, I won't go through these principles at the top, other than to say some of these things are very important. One of the things that's most important is this word niche construction. I've just written an article about leadership as niche construction. One of the things that humans do to adapt to the environment is they create environments. This we do. Some other creatures do this. Beavers will make a dam. Leafcutter ants will make a mold. Chimpanzees will make some sort of tools and so on that they use. But we have created many, many kinds of niche for us to live in, and some work better than others. This is the key point. And they work better than others because every time you create a culture, every time you create an organization, you are creating an experiment. The experiment is then an adaptation between what it means to be human and the nature of the challenges that we face. And you can see some forms, like communism, they don't work as well as they should do, as people would like them to work. And we're trying to find economic and social models that seem to work with human nature. This is the continuing struggle. Now, the point about evolutionary theory is the mind is not an empty book to be written on. Okay? We have the mind of hunter-gatherers. We have instincts. We have human instincts, and these determine a lot of the issues that we are facing today in organization. The evolution of business is very recent. We have created worlds that we struggle to live in. To live in a large corporation surrounded by strangers who come and go, this is not a world that we are very well adapted to. It creates lots of problems for us. However, the third point is very important. We can change the rules. If you change the rules of the game, so for example, you make religions, for example, make laws about marriage. These laws about marriage help people to live together. You know? And we experiment with different forms of cultures in order to achieve this goal. Now, the next point, we have deep evolutionary goals, and one of the things that humans do is we deceive ourselves. We're very optimistic creatures. We believe we can solve all our problems. We have often ideas about ourselves that sort of deny our primitive instincts, our primitive needs, and we need to face up to these. And we are currently changing the course of evolution. People now say we have entered a period called the Anthropocene. That means the planet is effectively under human control and has been for 10,000 years. At least 10,000 years, you can say everything that happens on this planet is the result of humans. Now, my last point here is, I think, one of the ones that is relevant here, is that psychology defeats itself via economics. Let me give you an example. A typical example is we are designed to like the taste of salt and sugar because they are scarce resources. Now, we can, through economics, we can create any amount of salt, we can create any amount of sugar, so we'll kill ourselves with salt and sugar. Okay? Now, we can work, and I think one of the important contributions is about how hard we are working. Our ancestors did not work very hard. Because of this ability to eat cooked food, it means you don't have to spend much time working. You can spend a lot of time exploring and doing other things. But now, we work harder and harder, and so people are now working too hard in order to keep ahead, or to keep up with others, because nobody wants to be left behind. This is another example of how our psychology is defeating itself, because we have the ability to make things happen, things that are possible that actually are not very good for us. So, if you want to know what kind of animal we are, it's a whole bunch of things. I won't go into huge detail. There's a whole lot of things in here which are part of the package of being human. To simplify it, you can say these are some of the most important. And I wrote this in an article some years ago, the Harvard Business Review. And you can say, for example, we operate with emotions before reason. We like to put things into classes. That's a very efficient thing. These are all things that were very, very useful to us in those ancient times as hunter-gatherers, and now get us into a lot of trouble. Loss aversion. We hate to lose more than we like to win, as Jimmy Connors, the tennis player, once said. Okay? But this, of course, means that people spend a lot of the time chasing losses. We have a lot of confidence. On the whole, we're not very realistic about risks. We're not very realistic about danger. We're not very realistic about lots of things, because confidence is very important. It drives us forward. But sometimes it drives us into very bad situations. We gossip. We're natural. It's what we're here for. We could do this on the internet, but we're here to gossip, right? I hope so. We like to read each other's minds. Very important to understand whether other people can be trusted or not trusted. We like to display. Here I am. You put me on display. I'm displaying. Okay? Everybody here will be displayed. It's an important part of what we do. We like to belong. Reputation matters. Everybody here cares about their reputation. Status and hierarchy are everywhere. Now, there's a lot I could say about the last subject, is that we are all also very different from each other in many respects. There's another whole psychology around this that I think is extremely important to this topic today. A man called Jonathan Haidt described this as like a man riding an elephant. The way the brain works is you have a new brain on top of an old brain. The old brain is a mammal brain, the new brain is the frontal cortex. And the frontal cortex represents the man on the elephant. He is cool, he can make plans, he has language, he has reason, he thinks he's purely rational. She thinks she's purely rational. But the elephant that he sits on, or she sits on, this is the mammalian brain. This is powerful, emotional, it knows what it wants. And we like to pretend the man is in charge. But when the elephant says, the elephant stops and says, I'm going to eat now, the man on the elephant says, I wanted it to do that. We are very good at rationalizing and pretending that the elephant doesn't exist. But you're having a conversation with your wife or with your husband or with somebody at work. Sometimes you think you're having a conversation of man to man, man to woman, but often it's elephant to elephant. Now, what is important is the path. We create contexts that make this work in different ways, and this is why organizational design matters very much. I studied this in two contexts. Number one was finance. this is supposed to be the most rational world there is. This is supposed to be the hyper-rational world where people are at their most rational. We did this study before the financial crisis, and we found traders are motivated by deeply irrational motives and by emotions. And you can see the whole financial bubble, the financial crash came because of a collective delusion of people living inside a bubble. Okay. And we got them to play a little computer game that illustrated perfectly how strong these illusions are in that industry. I also did a lot of studies on family business. Family businesses, I know in Italy, are very powerful, very strong. I love family businesses. I love family businesses because often they are closer to human nature than many other kinds of organizations. Because people can love, there's findings of love inside a family business. People can connect, people can be very flexible and dynamic. But we wrote a book about the problems that they have. Because those family emotions, when they spill into the world of rational business, cause crises. We wrote a book about the crises and how to avoid them. So, you could say that if we look at organizations, there's three principles. Number one is how do you group people? By function, by region, and so on. We have groupings. We organize them by hierarchy, and you can have centralization. And you can see that each one has its own particular set of problems. When you organize people in groups, you get tribalism. You know, between functions or between divisions. When you organize people by hierarchy, you get a lack of cooperation between people who should cooperate. People become alienated from each other. And when you centralize, you get too much power. Okay? So every form of organizational design brings out a problem in humans. Here's some examples. These are things that in this wonderful book, but in many other sources you can see. In organizations, people handle emotions very badly. We're very disappointed in the leaders we have. We have what I call a phony meritocracy. People who pretend that the people at the top are better than the people at the bottom. Right? We know it's not true, but everybody pretends it is true. We have discrimination between people and groups. We have tribalism. We fail to learn from mistakes. This is what happened in the financial crisis. We make bad decisions. Why do we make bad decisions? Because we're not very rational. We have corruption. What is corruption? Corruption is people being friendly to each other. People helping each other. It's corruption. It doesn't work. We have bad gossip and rumor because there's too little information and people want to know what is really happening. And so they listen to gossip, they listen to rumor. We don't trust each other anymore. We lose intimacy and trust. One of the wonderful contributions in the book is from India. We know in India, there's 30% turnover of people in a firm. How can you build a community when a third of your people are disappearing every year? It makes it very, very, very hard. We have conflicts. All over the world we have conflicts. We take resources, we destroy resources. We see a lot of unfairness. People compare themselves because we have lost a sense of community, and we have people who feel disengaged. This is the book I've just written here. If anybody's interested, I have some leaflets. This copy is for Amelia, and in a minute. But this book, The Eye of Leadership, it says that, and the subtitle tells the story, Strategies for Seeing, Being, and Doing. It says we obsess far too much about, the qualities we need for leaders and so on. And we spend far too much time thinking it's all about getting things done. Most leaders today are obsessively busy. They work very hard. They do far too many things. Whereas the real challenge of leadership is seeing. That's why the book is called The I for identity, and the I for seeing. What a leader sees is what matters. And if we are going to move forward in our organization, what we pay attention to really matters. What do we see? Your job as a leader is to see what other people don't see. That is the real meaning of vision, and that's what the book is largely about. There are some organizations that seem to have found models that work quite well, and the reason they work quite well is because they seem to be quite harmonious with human nature. Gore-Tex is one example. Gore-Tex is a high technology company. Nobody is a manager in Gore-Tex. Everybody comes in as an associate, and if you are a leader, you lead for as long as you want to, and then you start as long as people want you to. They have no units of more than 150. 150 is the size of the natural human community. It is the network capacity of the brain. It's 150. If there's a natural size to the human group, it's 150. Here we are. We're a community. Another example is this organization, where this man, he read my article in Harvard Business Review, and it's an Australian travel company, and he organized the company, after reading the article, into families, villages, and tribes. A shop is a family, a bunch of shops is a village, and a tribe is 150. And they meet and they organize as a highly motivational context where people feel engaged, people feel committed. So, do we have solutions? Maybe we have solutions. These are some of the things I hope that this points to that might be. First of all, it is about community. It is about community. The more we can create some sense of community where people feel, because once you get above 150, you can't be self-managing anymore. The Germans call it Gemeinschaft, I believe is the word for this sense of community. And it seems to be, and when I visited the Maasai, they're very self-regulating. They have their rules, but they don't have a police force. They don't need any. All their enforcements are held informally within the group, which you can do, of course. It helps if people don't leave and don't come in to keep your community stable. That helps. Organic groups where people are self-determining, where people can participate in a free way without too much status problems. We have leaders, and again I found this in the family business arena, leaders who see themselves as stewards. They say, I'm only here for a while, this organization exists before I came and after I leave. Okay, and my responsibility is to hold the trust of this organization and to leave it better than I found it. Bias correcting decision making. Daniel Kahneman and other people have written about these biases. The biases that exist in how we make decisions were put there by evolution for a good purpose. Confidence, a lot of the ways we simplify information to make quick decisions, but they get us into trouble in highly complex environments. They lead us to make bad decisions. We can correct these, and economists are now waking up to this with behavioral decision making and so on. Economists are now talking about how can you correct these biases. But this is where psychology and economics can work together. Natural diversity. We have a problem when all the kind of weird and strange people, like academics, can all be together in one place. It's healthy for us to have our diversity, for us to meet and live alongside people who are different to ourselves. And that communal existence is very important. A sense of ownership. We know that matters, so you feel that you own the community you're part of. Food sharing. Big political problem. How is food shared in our society? In the UK, it's a big problem. We have a very unequal society. It means that people don't trust each other, it means people won't work together, and again, our organizations make this worse. Fluid hierarchy. In other words, this thing about who leads must depend upon the circumstances. One of the things I say in my book is there is no one right model of leadership. That's why all the leadership books are wrong, because they all say, oh, this model or that model. The correct model is the one that works for your circumstances. This is what we need, and we have to say we need to create models of leadership and models of organization that work in the digital age. And I think you can see companies who are doing this. We need people to have some self-determination, how they assort themselves. We need to have systems of informal contracting so we can find each other, we can work together. And finally, if we stop kidding ourselves about the perfectibility of human nature, or that we can live in some kind of utopian world, if we start to think about ourselves in hard, realistic terms, we can then exercise some self-control. But at the moment, we're destroying the planet, we're doing all kinds of really quite bad things. We are currently engaged upon what's called the sixth extinction. There are many species that are going extinct because of human rapaciousness, human need to keep this sense of progress that obsesses us. We need some new models of society, we need new models of community, we need new political models, we need new models of leadership. We can get them if we use our brains. If we use our brains and don't just rely upon our instincts anymore. So, I hope this provides a little context for what we're going to talk about today. I just want to thank you very much for letting me be with you today. Thank you very much.